Okay, is it going? I am going to talk about opiate addiction in this one, and I'm going to pay special attention to that. But, and I wish she was my girlfriend. There's a lot of stuff. I'm just getting up and around, and I worked all last night. I'm actually covering some of this little lady's best stuff, and it's really coming out completely awesome. I mean, it came out nice, you know. Uh, and it's funny to have a cowboy character cover this stuff too. But yeah, I wanted to talk about opiate addiction, and you know, man, that air conditioner on the kick. It's raining here today, and I'm doing like fragile female, male cover of fragile female vocals, so I really can't get into it. So I thought I should talk about this. So, because it's really uh, widespread and epidemic, and it's just a nightmare of a disaster that I went through in my life. There's a place where Dr. Drew uh, practices in Los Angeles, and I've been through there. I used to go 3 times a year. Got to know, got to know him a little bit, and there's a guy named Bob Forrest there who I've known way before, and I'm not a celebrity or anything at all. uh, Way before Celebrity Rehab. A guy named Bob Forrest on there, and we were talking one day, and he was like, I saw that people come through with the crack and everything, but this prescription drug addiction situation makes that look like nothing. It's an epidemic that is beyond anything I've ever seen, and yeah, it is, and I my addiction began with chronic pain, and I have a I'm in a lot of pain right now, but I'd rather be in pain than be on that stuff again. And I'll go over it a little bit if you can just bear with me. My interface, I use Apogee interfaces, and my Apogee ensemble last night, it took a dump on me, and so I had to set up another interface. And I've got a bunch of them laying around, and that ensemble's got to go back, and it's a $2,000 or $3,000 item. I don't remember which, but one of the two, which I don't have right now and don't care. I mean, I have others, and but it was a blessing that happened. It was weird. I'm going to get into the opiate thing, but anyway, yeah. So my point with that is, my vlog is kind of a little bit harder to produce. Some people call it, what is it? Some people call it a vlog. I call it a vlog. So yeah, I was diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia, and it's a severe pain condition. And the doctors, after trying many different things, put me on opiate painkillers, and I took them, and I noticed, wow, not only does this work for the pain, but I don't have a single ache or pain all over, and I can work 24 hours a day, and I don't feel a darn thing. I can work harder. I definitely, it was very productive. I'm smarter, better, faster. I can get up in the morning, take 3 or 4 of these opiate deals, and they were it started out on Vicodin and Percodan and stuff like that, and ended up as morphine and OxyContin, and and that went on for several years with me, and I'm basically a fairly sharp guy, and I realized then it became more and more doctors. And if you've gotten into this, I'll just say that it's 3 years and a little time off of all the opiates and off of everything, in fact. And I'm really couldn't be happier about that. And but I'll say this, that it was a long, long, slow process, and that really 10 or 11 years of addiction that I went through, that started in 1996. I realized I was addicted probably 5 years into it, and I started going to hospitals, rehabs and hospitals 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes 4 or 5, to try to get off of it. And every time, physical pain and the depression from withdrawal would get me, and I didn't really, it gave me physical need to use those things. And I was also hooked on Xanax and Valium, and just a nice little, cocktail of all kinds of stuff. I noticed when you have a beard, I was looking at it, it kind of makes you look like you're missing teeth. The beard and mustache is new to me, so I wanted to prove I have teeth. But, you know, uh, what happened was finally I couldn't function anymore in the world, addicted. And it was a long, slow process. I would go to rehab, and I'll probably do several, episodes, if that's what you want to call them, on this, because all I can say in this one is that it was a very long, very slow process. I would go to rehab. I've had 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years off, and the pain would drive me back, and it was a really hard lesson to learn, that those things just. I take aspirin now, and it works every bit as well as morphine did, and I'm still able now, and I'm able to function in the world. But when I came off of morphine, and I was taking 1,000 milligrams a day at least, 10 100 milligram MS Contons, along with an OxyContin twister every 4 hours on top of it, to sort of add that wonderful high-end thing. I really had it to a science. And it it's so complicated. It's not really simple. The whole issue, when you have pain, depression, and addiction, those three cofactors feed each other, and it's a hell. But and also, when I came off of it, for the first year at least, I vomited every day. I was that addicted. I had withdrawal every day, severe withdrawal every day for a year, super severe the first 90 days, and then still sick in the mornings the first year. And it took the first 2 years, and that's the thing, to get off of it. And that's the thing with it, is that what I found was, you feel like shit for so long after you go through this stuff, that that drives you back. You think, when am I ever going to feel good again? And it took all of 2 years for me to begin to feel good again. And I like the one with the PDR with the pictures, and I can tell you every dose, every pill, everything on the market. Besides having a real snappy education, any kid in high school can tell you this nowadays. So, but it took a long time, and that also was driving me back. Was that, well, when am I ever going to feel good again? If I'm never going to feel good again, then I might as well just use again. Oh man, fentanyl. I used a lot of that. All of these. And but what I found, I'm going to get off that: Loratab, fentanyl, hydrocodone, Loracet, Norco, OxyContin. Was MS Contin on there? Yes, it is. Let's see if they have the purple ones I took. I like the pictures. But you know what? I wouldn't trade anything in the world. When I finally sort of came to my senses off all that stuff, I I now see what happened, and it took me from being a guy who owned a recording studio right in the middle of Los Angeles and working with movie stars and rock stars, and I was the center of the attention when they come in, with multi-million dollar projects and they need it all to work and it's all done with computers. I was the guy that could make everything sync up and work and sound good. And so you have, it was a neat thing to be the focus of attention for a few months of all of these people asking you every day, how is this going to work? How's it going to turn out? Is it looking all right? Is it sounding good? Is it doing okay? And as my addiction progressed, I became a guy. A lot of people subscribing to me today, and I don't know. I mean, what's up with that? I mean, that seems like we don't have that much in common. But maybe. I think a lot of them want hits. They want me to go to their site, which I'm doing now. But what I will say is, I Morocco, and she's 16. I guess she likes music. I'm wide awake, huh? Uh, it just took a long time, and it snuck up on me. It didn't happen all in one day. I didn't take a couple of pills, and next thing you know, I lived on Skid Row, and didn't own a pair of shoes. I mean, that took years, but in my experience, what I found is that uh, I've had a few friends who have said, "Well, that's too bad. You can't handle drugs." What I found is nobody can handle it like that, especially the opiates. It always, always, always gets you. I've had a lot of friends die and this and that, and I thought I could handle it. And then when I got clean and sober, an old friend of mine who had just gotten out of prison for a drug offense, he wanted to come over and visit, and he did, and we were talking, and I told him my story, trying to sort of hip him up to things about addiction, and he said to me, "Well, that's too bad." He goes, "You can't handle your high and your drugs, but I can." And here's a guy who had just gotten out of prison for a drug offense on parole, living in a supervised thing, telling me that he could handle his drug thing. And that's when I realized, oh wow, denial is not just a river in Egypt. I would I say about AA or NA or all of those, incredibly useful at first. My first meeting was in 1976. I was 16 years old, and I've been going a lot of years. I don't use any drugs or alcohol now, or prescription drugs. Nothing. That was another problem. They kept pumping me full of prescription drugs when I was trying to be sober, and they all made me tired and confused and messed up. And but anyway, about AA and stuff, it's incredible. If you're new to sobriety and you want to get clean, I wouldn't know all this stuff had I not gone to AA many, many years. I had many years clean and sober for the bulk of my career before, I fell from grace, if you will. But it's not easy. It's a complicated subject, and I didn't want to hit on every cliche. What happened to me, I thought I'd hit on all the cliches to start with in my addiction career, but it became very specific. And then I realized after I came out of it, well, it was a very specific experience, but still quite cliche. You were addicted and all messed up. And, the only other thing on that is I definitely want to say that, I don't go to AA anymore, but I'm a guy who had, since 76, 86, 96, 2006, 30 some odd years of experience and learning from it. And I don't go anymore. I wouldn't be against it, but it was really, really helpful. And it's kind of funny where people who are dying of addiction go, well, I don't go to AA, or I outgrew it. It's like, dude, it took me 25 years of incredibly intense work going there. to outgrow it, and I have outgrown it. I don't need it anymore. It's useful to me, and as someone who knows nothing about being sober or the tools used, it's a no-brainer, you know. Uh, but it hurts, and I'll probably do more of these on addiction and my path of addiction and my thinking as I got out of it. And you know, if you look at these dang vlogs or whatever, that's cool, but just learn from my mistakes, you know. And the thing that I learned with it, nobody can handle opiates, and nobody can handle addictive drugs, and it gets everybody. And it made me waste a good third of my life, you know, and well, a quarter anyway. So it was a long process to get off of morphine, fentanyl, uh, you know, handfuls of pills a day, sometimes 100 pills a day, um, for years. But it can happen, and it will happen. You gotta want it, and I can't tell you how many times I have thought it would never happen, and finally I did it, actually without any help at all. But that's so only because I went to the middle of nowhere by myself and just sweat it out. That's probably unlikely, but all the help I got over all the years with AA and institutions and being in and out of dual diagnosis facilities. If you go into a drug treatment facility nowadays, it's a dual diagnosis facility, so psychiatric and drug. So, you know, uh, you're kind of considered crazy, and probably should be. I now see I was probably pretty crazy, but it's a spiral that gets you out of control. So anyway, have some hope, and the main thing I learned was go easy. You didn't get screwed all up and a mess in one day. You're probably not going to get better in one day. But my case is proof that if you want it bad enough, you will do it. And I would hope for you what I found, which is that I just love life, not being stoned, and it's sometimes a complete drag. You got, you know, your haters and your golden spammers, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I hope that you can find the same. Maybe something I said could help somebody, because it's a huge problem. I know some of the people that have watched my music and stuff are probably just like me, you know, addicted, and or have been or were or are, probably a lot are. And I just felt like, well, I'm not ashamed to talk about my experiences. A lot of people, aren't you ashamed? I'm like, yeah, fuck off. You're just trying to make me feel bad, asshole. Which is a lot of what those stigmas are about psych problems and addiction. This one probably went on long as hell. I don't care. The few people that ever click on this will click off to something else if they want, right? Uh-huh. Some people call it a vlog. I call it a vlog.